how hard is it for you to imagine Georgia being the better team this time around?
Not that hard at all. I mean, these teams are really evenly matched, and it's really a fascinating dynamic between the two because from top to bottom, like player 1 to player 85 of scholarship players, Georgia has the edge, like from top to bottom. But, and this is a massive but, Alabama has the edge at quarterback, the most important position in the game. They have the edge at coach in Nick Saban, the greatest coach of this generation. And they have the edge at the best defensive player in Will Anderson Jr., who's an incredible player on the defensive side of the ball. But then, like, the entirety of the team, Georgia's stronger. So there's really interesting dynamics to the game. And then, of course, there's the mental hurdle that Georgia has to get past. Kirby Smart 0 for 4 in tries versus his former boss. And then, you know, just a month ago, getting embarrassed. I would say that was an embarrassing loss for Georgia, the way it went down. Like, they had a lead, blew it yet again in this matchup, and their defense, which was supposed to be otherworldly, got torched by Bryce Young. So a ton of different storylines to look at in this game that make it really, really compelling.
Well, as you're alluding to, we have Brian Broaddus, one of our hosts here, is a former scout for the Cowboys and other teams in the NFL. And so, like, we started doing the tape study on these college guys, and the Georgia front seven is silly good, but that doesn't do you a whole lot of good when the problem is Bryce Young and a spread offense. So, like, I'm picking, even though Georgia, I think, has better players, Bama to win because their better players aren't in the secondary.
Yeah, and that's what Nick Saban does really well. And that's what great teams and great coaches do, is you're not going to try to beat somebody at their best. You're going to find a vulnerability. And so Nick Saban was like, and Bill O'Brien, the offensive coordinator, had a great game plan. He's like, I'm not going to try to force the issue and try to establish the run like that old mindset. It's like, no, we're going to go a little bit of tempo. We're going to keep you on your heels, and I'm going to get the ball out quick, and I'm going to let my quarterback pick you apart. And Bryce Young did that. And they didn't have the guys in the secondary to match up with Alabama's receivers. And Jameson Williams is a problem. He is a matchup nightmare for any corner, even the best corners in the game. But, again, this is another interesting storyline. John Mechie III, who is the second leading receiver on Alabama, he's out with an ACL tear. So he's not on the field. So Georgia can do more, little safety help, some bracket coverage, things of that nature, to take away Jameson Williams, who had a fantastic game, that SEC championship game, and then they can, maybe do a little bit more across the board. They can bring a little bit more blitzes, and they don't have to worry as much about getting torched. The problem is the name we probably aren't familiar with, but they've got some five-star that hasn't played much that's going to have a massive opportunity at Alabama. You just feel like there's going to be an unsung hero in this game for Bama. Should Bama win, that Georgia didn't see coming, because that's how talented these teams are. They just replace guys. When an 1,100-yard receiver goes down, it's somebody we may not know, but trust me, they're capable of doing the job.
Danny, when you watch the Alabama-Cincinnati game and the ability of Alabama to run the football, you mentioned about, trying not to force the issue. Did they try and send a message to Georgia that, hey, we are capable of running this thing if we have to?
No, I don't think they did. I think that was exactly what we were talking about. So Cincinnati has one of the best secondaries in the country of any level. They have Sauce Gardner and Kobe Bryant, two NFL-type corners. And I think Bill O'Brien and Nick Saban got together and said, why would we try to throw it? We can just cram it down their throats. And you saw that. And that was fully on display. And I do think it was a big confidence boost for them, for Alabama, to show, yeah, we can run the ball. Like, they're not going to ever abandon the run. Like, you always want to be able to run the ball and establish the line of scrimmage. So it's not like they're going to abandon that. And I think you'll see a little bit more of Brian Robinson Jr. from Alabama running the football. But that, to me, was all about attacking the weakness of Cincinnati. And their weakness was their lack of size to go toe-to-toe with Bama's offensive line. And they said, you know what, we're not going to get tricky. We're not going to get cute. We're just going to hammer you. And they just controlled the line of scrimmage, which worked, close to perfection against Cincinnati. I mean, it was just the score. It was kind of one of those weird games where it's kind of close, but Bama just had control the entire game, which was like the opposite of what Georgia did to Michigan, where they just jumped out, like decimated them early. And then it was like a 4-minute drill. Let's just keep the clock running in the second half because it was such a just a blowout.
Do you think, Danny, that Georgia has a deficiency at quarterback in this one?
Well, I do. So here's the thing: Stetson Bennett has taken so much heat. It's been so much polarization around the discussion of him. Stetson Bennett has shown me time and time again he's good enough to win a national championship with. Like, that's not an issue. He can make all the throws. He can do what it takes. And for some reason, he was the scapegoat for their loss against Alabama. And he didn't play great. He didn't play his best game. He had a couple interceptions, and some were ugly, and he made some foolish mistakes. But if your MO, if your reputation is the best defense in the country, then you can't come out and blame your quarterback when you give up 41 points. And I know one was a pick six, and but you gave up 34 points. Like, you're a team that was averaging single digits giving up, all season long. You can't get torched by another quarterback for 400 yards. So I do think, Stetson Bennett's not going to go toe-to-toe with Bryce Young. There's no scenario I envision that happening. And Stetson Bennett in that first matchup threw it 48 times. That is not a recipe for Georgia to win. They need Stetson Bennett to go out there and be probably about 20 of 28, 2 touchdowns, maybe 20 yards scrambling in a third and short where he finds some, lane he can keep the chains moving. But you do not want him throwing it 40-plus times in this game if you want to win. And if they don't win, they'll go shop the quarterback market because they'll look and say, you know what, great defense isn't enough to win. We need a quarterback who's dynamic. But the thing is, I still think they could win this game with Stetson Bennett. But, Kirby Smart is his mentor is Nick Saban, and he basically built Alabama East in Athens, Georgia. The one thing that he hasn't done yet is brought in an offensive coordinator like Lane Kiffin, and he brought in Todd Monken, who's been better. And maybe it's because Kirby hasn't let him, but at some point, Kirby Smart, I do think, has to let the reins go. Let the offensive coordinator do his job, and I do think they'll go out and try to get the automatic 5-star quarterback. And if they get that the same way that Nick Saban got, all of a sudden, once he brought Lane Kiffin, it was Jalen Hurts, it was Tua Tagovailoa, it was Mac Jones, and now it's Bryce Young. And good luck trying to stop either one of these teams. Already we see how hard it is to stop Bama. If Georgia finds a quarterback and opens up the offense like that, they've got the talent, the horses. We might be seeing this matchup the next 4 or 5 years in a row. That's how good these teams could be.
Danny Kanell, betonline.net. What is your favorite bet for this game?
So I like Georgia land 2.5. I like the revenge factor, but I don't love it. I love the under. Both of these defenses, I think, seeing the other opponent on tape, I think Georgia will make the adjustments necessary to at least contain Bryce Young, to slow him down somewhat. The loss of John Mechie is a big producer that's not going to be on the field. And then as much as we talk about Georgia's defense, Bama's defense might be better. Listen to this. This is crazy. So Georgia, all we talk about is how great their defense is. Bama's defense has more sacks than Georgia's, more tackles for loss, more interceptions. They have a better rush defense, and they're better at getting opponents off the field on third down. It's insane how good this Bama defense is. So I think this is going to be a defensive slugfest. If I had a score, I would guess 24-21 or 27-24, somewhere in that range, a Georgia win, but it's under the 52.5 total. So my under is a favorite play for me.